Someone call it. I'm scared.
Take 3.
Action.
Okay. Hi guys, welcome back to Foreplay Podcast. Today we're really excited because we're going to be talking about kinks and fetishes.
Okay, so I am just going to start everything off with kind of saying what is a kink and what is a fetish, and are they the same things? The answer is no, they're different. So a fetish is a sexual fixation on a specific object or act that is necessary for sexual gratification. Fetish is not being able to get off without that kind of play, whereas a kink encompasses a bunch of alternative sexual interests, preferences, or fantasies, something that you find attractive or arousing. So the kind of play that adds another layer to my sex life that I love, but it's not always necessary in every experience.
Interesting.
And a common misconception that it was saying them as if they were like a bad thing, or saying them as if they were a problem.
Yeah.
And just, it's not. You're not gross if you have a fetish, and you're not gross if you have a kink. There's such a stigma around it. And if you take anything away from watching this, it's that explore those kinks and explore those fetishes, because there's so much healing done through them, and it's important to explore. So if you're curious, there's lots of resources, so you don't have to be scared or worried. There's lots of stuff for you.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I never knew the difference between them.
I know. But yeah, that's about it for me.
Cool.
We're going to talk about one of the sexual deviant tests that we all did, to kind of get a feel of where you are. So
that's really cool. Definitely makes you think about what you have, or what you experience.
Yeah, I made my significant other take the test. There are hints of things that he does during sex, or that when I do what I do, he'll respond to. So I have had my theories.
I'm like, what are you? What are you into?
And in full disclosure, he was pretty much vanilla. And I was like, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, because I'm just not very vanilla. But there were some things in there, and I was like, ooh, I can work with that. It's exciting,
It's interesting taking the test yourself if you've never done it before, and then finding something else, or finding something out that you never would have thought of.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Even because I know we got a few questions, and we're going to have a whole other video, our Q&A. So if you did ask a question, then you can check out that video as well. But there was a question on it. It was how do I bring this up to my partner? And we talk about that in every single video that we've ever done, is how do I explain my fetish to my partner? If you both take that test and then you share your answers, it's you probably will realize so much about your partner that you never would have thought.
Yeah.
It's just then you just compare them together, and it just, oh, you're 99% of that. That, you have a common ground.
Yeah. And see how much of it speaks to you, and even just learning what the different terms are, because there's mild definitions after you take the test and shit like that. So it's just a little, it's an insight, it's inspiration, sexual inspiration.
Oh yeah, so it's BDSMtest.org. So it's what kind of sexual deviant are you? Okay guys, so next we have bondage and discipline. Baji.
All right, you guys. Well, I'm really excited to talk about this. So I'm going to just be reading a bit, just because I don't want to miss any information. I know I get excited and I'll talk really fast, but I'm just going to just listen to the vibes, okay? If my Wi-Fi is messed up like last time, I apologize too, but I think we're going okay today, so it should be okay. Yeah. But bondage and discipline, let's get into it. So this refers to a certain erotic act that involves restraining and training submissive partners. So typically a dominant partner will be the one to restrain and discipline a submissive partner. So you can either choose to be dom or submissive, or if you switch, that's totally cool too. So in the restraints, these can range from simple setups like rope and handcuffs to more intricate setups like bondage, cages, or ceiling hooks. So that could get pretty intense. It would take a lot of practice to like get to that level for sure. Be super comfortable with your partner as well if that's something you want to get into as well. The discipline part often involves correcting submissive behavior with physical and psychological punishment like spanking or erotic humiliation. So that could even just be like saying mean things to your partner if that's what you're into and that's what you consent to. But I wanted to also talk a huge chunk about the safety part of it. I was reading up on kind of the motto of bondage, and I think this could also be the motto for just everything sexual as well. But they say that it's to be safe, sane, and consensual. So I'm just going to break those down really quick. So safety comes first. So basically an example of this is don't tie up your partner too tightly to where it's hurting them. It's going to hurt you and it's not safe. Just try and use your head, be safe with what you're using and the tools that you're using. Another thing with that is you can use a safe word. I personally haven't used a safe word just because I've felt that no is enough. But if you're in a relationship where you say no and they still do things, then it would be important to create a word where, I don't know, it could be something random like pineapple or something, anything, so that your partner knows that that is where you both have to immediately stop. The last one is consent. So basically, same thing. Dominant or submissive must perform consensually and at their own free will. So once again, use that safe word. Both parties have to be completely okay with what's happening. Even if you think you want to go to the next level and your partner isn't ready to go to that level, you have to respect that at all times, or else you're not going to have fun at all. And the point of this is to have fun, right? So just make sure you guys are on the same level. So basically, trust is the biggest thing with bondage. Communication is important. I was reading a bunch of articles of girls saying like, I didn't want to say no or stop or like, don't tie me up like that because you're going to wreck the situation or the vibe that you guys have going. But just be able to speak up. It's going to be so much more enjoyable for you if you do speak up and tell your partner that what your needs are. If you do need to be tied up tighter or you don't, you need to be loosened, just like have that free flowing conversation, and then you'll just have way more fun in the end. I'm going to talk briefly about the toys. I know we're going to have like a video later that kind of goes into the juicy details that you guys really want. But I want to talk about the ones that I've used before with bondage. The first stuff is handcuffs. I know Emily had her story of like the shitty handcuffs, but I did buy like really, really expensive handcuffs when I did have them at the time. They were around $95-ish, which is pricey, but once again, it is kind of like the metal that I talked about in previous videos. It is something you're going to have for a really, really long time, hopefully, unless you break them for some reason. But I did have the handcuffs. I basically just used them. You could, like, if you had a nice headboard, you could like tie it on your headboard, kind of like behind, or just kind of just have them freely. They're super, super easy. I would say that's the most basic thing to use, at least in my opinion. And next super more like basic and cheaper thing is having rope. But once again, you want to make sure this is really, really good quality rope. The rope I got was around like $30. Wasn't crazy, wasn't super cheap either. And then the last thing I've used is bed restraints. So if you're not sure what a bed restraint is, mine, it attached to my wrists and my ankles, and you just like slip it under the bed, and then you're
Kind of like sprawled out like a starfish.
Love it.
yeah, right. I honestly really liked it. There's so much you can really do with it. Like, I didn't have any vibrators or anything at the time. Like I was into bondage before I even got into vibrators or toys, which is very interesting. But so we just did like oral sex, like while I was tied up, and then obviously just like having sex. Honestly, it was really, really good. Definitely a way to like explore your body. You could definitely introduce like wax or like temperature play with that as well, as long as obviously you're consenting to that. But I really, really liked that. That was my first experience with bondage. So yeah, how I got into it was I basically just told my partner I've watched this type of porn my entire life. I've watched bondage. Every time I go on porn, I literally type in bondage porn because I'm just like, that's what turns me on. And I don't think it's my fetish because I don't have to be doing that to get off, but it definitely, I would say, is more of a kink because I just enjoy it. I would enjoy
tying my partner up as well. If they like wanted that, I'm definitely open to that. But also, just one last thing I wanted to touch on is that bondage doesn't always have to be sexual. It can be a form of art as well. I know a ton of artists that do photo shoots with bondage, painting with art bondage, clothing that has bondage on it. I know I wear a ton of bondage stuff when I go to raves and stuff. But yeah, so just keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be weird. It is also just an art form. But yeah, that's all I had to say about it.
Wow.
And I have one quick thing to add. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, my dad just walks in the door. When we're talking about candles and like the wax, we're talking about specific candles that
Soft
have
wax.
that specific wax. Not like taking like a Bath and Body Works candle and dumping it.
Yes.
Not that. Okay, so don't get that twisted.
Wax candles, boys.
Yeah, not the same.
And test it out on like a patch of skin first. Don't go
Yeah.
straight for like, ooh, I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah, unless
that
you've
would
done
not
that before and like that's what you want. But if you've never done it before, then test it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still scared, but that's kind of part of the fun. Like, is being scared, but just knowing that like you've set boundaries around you to be like, okay, this person's not gonna hurt me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ooh. And what
I
already?
was just going to add to the candle thing. If you're not buying the candle from like a sex store, soy-based candles are the best kind.
Cool. Thank you, ma'am. I think you're next.
I'm so excited for this. So I am doing the dominance and submission part of BDSM. So I'm just going to go through a bit of a definition, then I'm going to go through subcategories, and then tips about starting a dom-sub relationship with your partner.
Ooh.
Dominance submission, also called DS, is a set of behaviors, customs, and rituals involving the submission of one person to another in an erotic episode or lifestyle. It is a subset of BDSM. This form of sexual contact and pleasure has been shown to please a minority of people. So, it's not the most popular thing, but there is a niche of people who enjoy it. More than you'd think, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Both parties take pleasure or erotic enjoyment from either dominating or being dominant. Those who take the superior position are called dominants. So for the male doms, it's DOMS, and for female doms, it's DOMMES. So there is different. But obviously, you can use whichever title you want. That's just typically what's used. While those who take the subordinate position are called submissive or subs. And then a switch is an individual who plays either role. So they can be a dominant one day and a sub one day, depending on what they feel like. I'm going to go quickly through the most popular subcategories of dom sub and then just a little explanation. So the first one I have is master slave. This tends to be a more intense relationship. A lot of people will say the dominants are a little more strict. Maybe they have harsher rules. A lot of the time, master-slave relationships are 24/7, like it's a lifestyle, instead of something that you just do in the bedroom. So this can look like the dominant calls themselves master. They can create a set of rules for you, and you have to follow them. And if you don't follow them, you can get punished. It might not always be sexual either. Being told to bring them a glass of water. That's it. It doesn't have to be sexual, but it's more about a power exchange. So someone having control over their submissive. But a lot of people think the dominant is the one that's in control. Well, that's not the truth. The submissive holds the power in the relationship. They're the one who's saying, yes, you can do this to me. I'm trusting you to do this to me. And if you're going into a DS relationship and the dominant doesn't understand that, that is a huge, huge red flag. The next one I have, just a typical dom-sub relationship. You might not have a label for it, which is totally okay. If you just like having a set of rules that your partner makes you follow and you have punishments and stuff like that, that's okay too. Then I have owner and pet. So this kind of goes into pet play. The submissive would act like maybe a dog or a cat. And that can look like a wide variety of things. Maybe they're like wearing ears and a collar while they're at home. Or maybe they like to eat out of a bowl. Who knows? There's obviously a large spectrum for that. And then the last one I have is DDLG, which stands for Daddy Dom Little Girl. The best way I can explain this is it's like a softer DS relationship. I shouldn't just say DDLG. There can be little girl, mommy dom, little boy. It's just typically called DDLG, but there's different parts to it. So, like I was saying, it's a softer part of DS. Usually the dominant kind of takes on a parental role. They take care of their submissive needs and wants, just like a parent would, but this particular part of DS is often kind of frowned upon because people think it has to do with incest or they are into children, but it's definitely not that at all. I know maybe some people might take advantage of it if they do have those type of tendencies, but that's not what it is at all, and that's not what it's supposed to be. Those are the main subcategories of DS. And then tips for starting a dom sub relationship. So first, obviously we always say this, have a conversation with your partner, bring it up in a casual way. Like we're saying, maybe do the kink test together. That would be a fun way to bring it up, and then it doesn't feel so serious. Make sure they know your needs and wants, what your expectations are, kind of break down what you're looking for and why you want to do it, just so they can understand from your perspective. Number 2 is figure out what they're interested in and what you and your partner's limits and boundaries are. It's super, super important when you're entering a DS relationship, is you need to know what they don't ever want to do, what you don't ever want to do. A lot of people sometimes will have different safe words. So like a system of like lights, like green, okay, I'm good. Yellow, I'm getting a little uncomfortable, but let's continue. And then red being like, no, please no.
Can I interrupt for a sec?
Yeah, oh, of course.
Oh my God, in junior high, we had this teacher, and he was my French teacher, but he also taught social studies and military history. Emily, you know who this is. I just don't know if I should say their name,
No, don't say their name.
Okay. God save the queen. That's what we'll call this.
Don't even say our partner's name.
So this teacher, bless his heart, bless his soul, used to sing God Save the Queen for like Remembrance Day assemblies and shit like that. But in class, whenever we would be doing like solo work, so he'd like do his thing on the computer and we'd be working on our projects or whatever, he'd turn on this stoplight and it had red, yellow, and green, and it took the class's volume, and then when it got to red, it was like and he'd be like, see that? Every single time. So that's like a perfect, like, you know what I mean? Oh, that's amazing. I'm gonna try that. Be like, green, keep going. Be like, right,
like green meat.
Yeah, green meat. Fucking Grinch in here. But thank you for letting me interrupt. Go on, my dear.
Yeah, of course. So the last one I have is do research, look into the specific category of dom sub that you're interested in. The thing about BDSM is it's not textbook. It can look like a multitude of different things, and it can be whatever you want. You don't have to, if you're into DDLG, you don't have to call your dominant daddy. You could call them anything you want, and that's the beauty of BDSM, is it can be whatever you want. And yeah, sorry, I feel like I talked so much.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, seriously though.
Well, to know.
I want to know how this relates to you.
Okay.
What do you want to share?
I guess I have a few things I could. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot. So I'm not in like a 24/7 lifestyle, so we don't do it all the time. Right now, it's usually just in the bedroom, but I might like to call my partner daddy.
Oh,
that's all I can say. But
I just might like it.
I have an app which my partner has as well, and it has my rules on it, which he can see if I'm doing them in real time, and it tracks. Like it's like a point system. So when I'm really bad at brushing my teeth, it sounds really gross, but I just like cannot do it. Like I just like cannot. So that's one of my rules, is brush my teeth twice a day. And then if I do it, I like push the plus and then it gives me points, and then I can spend those points on rewards, which are also in the app. So
Ooh, I like that.
Called. Oh my God, I want this.
it's
Yeah.
called Obedience, if you can be able to see it. It's just a collar. It's like a red collar.
Want that. Oh my God. Me does
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super fun. I mean, do I do it? Like, not really, because I'm super lazy and also a brat, but it's fun. And it's a really easy way. If you don't really know what to start with your rules, you can just pop a few in the app, see how they go. And
Yeah. I feel like that would be a fun way to like try and facilitate like role playing if you're not in the same space. Like if you don't get to see your partner all the time, like you don't live together necessarily or whatever, like you're there, one's home, one's at work all day, but you know you're gonna have like a date night later, check off what you did that day and be like, you know what I mean?
You like purposely don't check anything. You're like,
Yeah, you're like, beat my ass. Literally.
One of my rewards is getting Subway.
I love that.
It's the simple things, honestly.
Yeah, it really is. It's the little things.
you guys want to know what's so funny? I like, because obviously this isn't my ideal filming situation, but on the wall right there, I had my cross and my rose. I was like, no, that can't be on the wall. I didn't take that
Rose
down.
cross. Jesus, bye, please. Okay, I have a few books that I think are really great for people who are just starting out. If they kind of don't know what they want to do or how to go about it, these books will help you tremendously. The first one I'm actually currently reading with my partner right now. It's called The Heart of Dominance and Guide to Practicing Consensual Dominance by Anton Fullman. So that's the first one. And then the new bottoming book, that one is for submissives, and that one's by Dosey Easton. And there's also the new topping book, and that's for dominant by the same author. So if you want some resources, check them out. I think you can get them on Amazon for under $10. Yeah, that's it for me. I think Jada's going to end us off with a spicy one.
Hello. Today, I'm going to talk about sadomasochism. And this is really interesting to me. Like, it's just, I'm like she was getting turned on from her anal research the other day. I was straight up so horny from reading this. And that's when I made my partner do the sexual deviant quiz, because I was like, please have something that like aligns with me. We have really good sex, but I want to try new things constantly. And I think that's a lot for some people.
Interject really quick.
Always.
I just want you to tell the people why you're the one doing sadomasochism.
I'm a fucking masochist, but I'm also a switch, so I'm also a sadist. Like, I'm literally everything, I swear. I want to give and receive the pain. Oh god, but yeah, that's just me, man. I think I'm like, I don't know, I want to tattoo my inner lip myself. Like, I think that says enough. But definition of sadomasochism: the psychological tendency or sexual practice characterized by both sadism and masochism. So it's essentially giving and receiving pain for sexual pleasure. So sadism, causing pain, humiliation, or fear, some sort of like physical or mental pain to achieve sexual gratification. This can be practiced through bondage, restraints, impact play, role playing, etc. Also masochism, so same thing pretty much, but the opposite. Participation, obviously consensual participation in a sexual activity that involves being humiliated, beaten, bound, or otherwise abused. We're putting that in quotations, it's consensual, to experience sexual excitement. Same thing can be practiced through submission, bondage or restraints, impact play, role playing, etc. One funny thing that I found while researching this, because as much as I'm like, I'm a switch, I'm a masochist, I'm a sadist, I haven't really practiced a lot of this. I just kind of know where my fantasies lie. But while doing this research, I found like masochism, sadism, sadomasochism has all been like coupled with the word disorder. And I was like, what? Unless you were on like a fetish or kink site, like which is why I did most of my research on FetLife.
Crazy.
Yeah, I just think it's crazy. Like, I found a bunch of like studies that are like, are serial killers are, and I should probably do a little bit of like trigger warning because I'm going to talk about trauma and like maybe a little bit of sexual assault. But on Google, it was like, are serial killers rapists? Are they sadists? Or like, why are all serial killers and rapists sadists? And I was like, that's not the case. Like, fantasy versus reality, thank you, is so different. He brought me water because apparently I'm drunk, but I texted him asking for more wine. Tea. And that's really not the case. So I'm excited to kind of talk about stigma a little bit there. I'm going to talk about a few different things, how to like engage safely or like where to start do's and don'ts for safety, stigma and healing, because I think that's why I'm so interested in sadomasochism, and then a few beginner recommendations. I have mostly books, so I think these kind of things require a lot of research to do it safely, because you can really hurt yourself or get hurt by somebody else or hurt somebody else. So it's important to be smart. So let's start with how to safely start or like engage. Trust is a big one. If you like receiving pain, feel like this scenario can still be really scary, but I think that's part of the hot thing. So if like the big part for me is being scared, but knowing that I can still let go because I know my partner is listening to my body language or my preset boundaries. So therefore I can still enjoy like the thrill of it without having my guard up. Because you're allowed to be scared. Like most of my research pointed to the fact that sadists like the reaction of receiving pain and like how their body reacts, how they react vocally, whatever. But the point isn't to actually just like hurt somebody and put them out of their comfort zone, unless that's also your thing. A lot of masochists will like having their limits pushed, and they'll tell you that beforehand. So it's all about boundaries. As long as you're within those boundaries, you can let go while still like having that excitement, having that fear, having that like anticipation of like if someone's gonna spank you, or you know what I mean. So what I said is you should start by finding out ways you wish to be hurt or hurt others. So inquire through forums, porn. Be careful about porn because it's not always realistic, and they don't really, I don't know about you guys, but I haven't seen boundaries being set in porn. Never have I ever seen boundaries be set in porn. So be careful about that. Blogs, books, do your research while you masturbate or fantasize, and then start small. So play around with like dom sub role plays, I would say. Like do something with that app and see how somebody like respects your boundaries while you're doing that. Or maybe play around with like dom sub role plays around like orgasming before going straight into like impact play. So do you like being like rewarded or punished afterwards? Because something you can do without necessarily being like hurt is like being edged by your partner. Like your partner saying like you're not allowed to come yet, and then if you do come, this is what happens, and if you don't come, you know what I mean, this is what happens. You have Maddie's like there's a reward and a punishment, and you can kind of like gauge how this person is going to respect your boundaries if you're ready to like engage in like sexual play with them, and do something like that. And then also just take your time to really 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 get to know like your potential partner first. Go on dates, like get to know them as a person too before just going straight into playing, because whether you're the sadist or the masochist, you're trusting someone else, you know what I mean, or you're put in a position of upholding somebody's trust and boundaries, and you don't want to fuck that up. You want to be a good person. Set boundaries, lay out what you want and what you don't want to try, and therefore there are clear rules during play and everybody is safe. Set up a safe word, or this is an interesting thing as well, because G, you were kind of talking about like having your safe word ruin like the vibe, you know what I mean? But you can set clear forms of nonverbal communication, and you can test those things out in role-playing scenarios beforehand. Don't just like jump right in. So if you notice your body, like I have 2 jobs, and one of them really, really requires people to read body language. So if somebody's in pain and the person who's like, you know, doing the treatment knows that their guest is in pain, they should know to stop. You know what I mean? So if you notice that you're inching away from it, or you're like whining, or your face looks like you're in pain or something like that, and that is your nonverbal cue to like stop, let your partner know that if you don't want to have words involved as well. Tap the bed, tap their arm, whatever works. Just know when to take it back a notch without necessarily breaking the role play. So do's and don'ts for safety. Find somebody that you trust inside and outside of sex, somebody that you can communicate well with, and somebody who respects your boundaries in all scenarios. If you're like, you know what, I hate red freezies, and this person only buys you red freezies, they're not the one. You know what I mean? Fuck that. If you find that your partner uses like their sadist or masochist role to kind of manipulate you in non-negotiated terms, they're not in it for your well-being. They're not in it for your pleasure. They're in it to use their kink as an excuse to treat people the way that they want. And that's not okay. So big red flag if they're like, oh, you know, I can't control myself, I'm a sadist. Like, no, you can control yourself. You're a human being before you're a sadist. You know what I mean? Another point would be like, does your partner check in with you before, after, during sex or play? These are things you can ask for if they're not already established. And these are things you can tell your partner you're going to do yourself. Like if you're a sadist and you want to try, you know, you're hurting somebody for the first time or a new partner for the first time, you can let them know, hey, I'm just going to check in with you halfway through, see how you're doing, because I don't want to take things too far. You know what I mean? It's all about communication, and communication is sexy. Right, boys? Right. Look into safe and unsafe ways to be hurt or hurt others. There are risks and dangers to being reckless with physical force. So if you're choking somebody the wrong way, you can kill them. You can make them pass out in not a good way. I don't know if everybody knows this, so I'm just going to go over it anyways. I know we know it, but squeezing the sides of your neck versus
Pressing down on your esophagus.
there are two different ways. Squeezing the sides is good because it restricts like the oxygen to your brain, makes you feel a little bit lightheaded. But even that you have to be careful with. Pressing on your windpipe is just gonna actually stop you from breathing, and that's not what we want. You know what I mean? Hair pulling. Actually, Maddie taught me this a while ago. But if you're just pulling somebody's hair from the front, you're gonna break their fucking neck. You want to grab from like the base of the head and pull back. Like there's a total difference between like and like pulling from there and, you know, rotating a little bit.
And those are the things you literally don't even think about.
Yeah. Oh my God. It happened to me the
Wow.
other day. Like I was like, pull my hair, and it happened like this. And I was like, no. And it happened so many times before, like just regular hair pulling has always been fine, but just something missed the mark this time. And I was like, ow. And I don't know if it was just like, because this person has never thought of the proper and improper ways to pull hair, or if they just fucking went for it. But I was like, that is not okay. Restraining like the belt versus learning how to do knots, getting like, you know, skin safe materials if that's what you're into. You got to do a little bit of research because there really is safety involved. No one wants to have the horror story of really like damaging another person through play. Another interesting option I found online was to, if you're like looking for a partner and you're new to, you know, sadism or masochism or both, is to find out or like seek out a sadomasochist partner. So somebody who's into sadism and masochism. Therefore, this person has experienced both sides of the spectrum, most likely, and they may understand your questions or concerns regarding the role that you're interested in pursuing. Just somebody who has experienced both, so they can give you tips, they can tell you their experience with it, and it might make you feel a little bit more comfortable. But I would say my biggest piece of advice, yeah.
No, you finish. I just have something to add.
My biggest pieces of advice would be to get to know this person, trust this person, date this person, like figure it out. It's a bond you're creating. As much as I'm down for, you know, fucking on the first date, like there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're trusting somebody with your vulnerability and you could be tied up and all of those things, you want to make sure you're with somebody that you genuinely trust. So take your time. It'll all come in time. What do you want to add?
I'm up here.
Oh. To the window.
I was just gonna add how you are going to get in contact with those people is go to thecage.co. I was researching this today. It's such an amazing site. I'll see if I have it on my phone. So pretty much you sign up on the website, you put in your phone number, they call you with a verification code. You type in the verification code, you type in your city, so like Edmonton, Alberta, because I was like, I don't know if this is just for the States, and yeah, Edmonton, Alberta was on there. You can connect with anybody you want. So if you're looking for that type of relationship, you can find those type of people. If you're looking to learn more, they have podcasts, like they have the Perverted podcast, Off the Cuffs. There's so many other resources that you can go to and find out all the information, connect with those same people that you want to learn from, and it's all derived from like sex educators, psychologists. It's proven research that you can trust. That one I would definitely recommend going and checking out, especially if you want to get in connection with those people, because sometimes it's, like if you go on Tinder and you're like, hey, are you into this? It's not the same. So if you're really looking to explore that type of relationship, then I would go check out one of those sites, or even like the FetLife site. Like those are, I think, better resources than a dating app.
Yeah. No, seriously though, like when I was on Tinder last, like there would always be these like ominous photos, and it was like, you know, daddy dom, you know, and they would give a couple guidelines, and I was like so tempted because I'm like, I want to explore this, but I was like, I know nothing about this person. I just, it was kind of just scary, and not in the good way. You know what I mean? Like scary in the fact that I wasn't able to let go and just like go for it. It was just like all sorts of bad shit could happen from it. And it could be fine, but it wasn't a risk I was going to take with my body. You know what I mean? Okay, my next topic is stigma and healing. And this is, again, kind of why I'm like interested, like so interested in sadomasochism, is because of trauma. So sex can be a healing practice for a lot of people. Specifically referring to trauma, sadomasochism can be a place to practice taking power back from a situation where you felt powerless. And honestly, like this speaks to me. Please. Through some personal reading, like outside of the podcast, I've learned about how trauma lives in our bodies. Honestly, like when you've experienced something traumatic, you go into a state where you're constantly scanning people and places for danger, and it is impossible to like turn that switch off in your brain. Like to make you whether it's your childhood self or your present self or what have you, to make them realize that they're safe, that is like a very long journey. So a lot of people can find that through sex. Having a place to feel safe and scared at the same time can be a way of rewriting the ending of a traumatic situation. And that, I guess, specifically refers to masochism. So if you're receiving pain, but you have boundaries set, you trust this person, you're aroused, you know what I mean? All of those great things while still kind of feeling scared, you're rewriting the narrative of that time you weren't safe. And that can be incredible. Like that can, you can just, yeah, you can release so much shit. And similarly, causing pain while I'm like spank, while simultaneously caretaking and respecting that person's boundaries and like making sure they're safe can restore the feeling of power as well. Honestly, like everybody wins. Though this can be like healing for a lot of people, re-entering a space of fear and violence can be triggering. So really, really take it slow, especially at first. Set some boundaries and just do what you gotta do. Do your research, do some reading, fantasize, just take it at your own pace. And then lastly, I have some beginner recommendations. So I was gonna do some toys, but I think I'm gonna kind of stick to the books, because this takes so, like, I feel like this kind of stuff takes a lot of research first, just so we do it properly. I don't want to like be the person who's setting people off to just like run into it with both feet, because you deserve love, respect, time. You got this. So a couple books, I would say the one that I thought was the most interesting was The Ultimate Guide to Kink. I saw it on the Tickle Trunk website for $26, but Maddie was saying you could find some books for like $10 on Amazon, so I would check out some other resources as well. Cool thing about this is each chapter is written by a different sexuality or BDSM educator, and there's two main parts in the books, like throughout all the chapters, but the first part is dedicated to like teaching you how to do stuff, so everything from flogging to bondage, and the second part kind of teaches about fantasies, and just different realms and I guess subcategories of BDSM, so from age play to masochism, and so it's like perfect for kinky, curious people, you know? Another one would be Playing Well with Others. That one was about dominance. Kama Sutra 365, so it's based off of like the teachings of Kama Sutra, so it gives you a year's worth of sex positions, and that one's $21. And then the last one I found was Screw the Roses, Send Me the Thorns, and that one's by Philip Miller and Molly Devin. It was like $35. Again, you could probably find it a little bit less money, but the highlights were that there are clear explanations for the curious, solid advice, safety measures, and steamy suggestions for the adventurous. So kind of like a well-rounded just guide to kink. You know what I mean? I think that was it for me. Anybody have comments, questions, beliefs, concerns?
Did we want to talk about our test results for the
Yeah.
BDSM quiz?
Heck yeah. So for my sexual deviant test, my top takeaways were that I am a rope bunny, a switch. Who would have guessed it? Who would have fucking guessed it? A brat, a voyeur, and an exhibitionist. Honestly, everything that I have, I had the opposite of. So I'm a rope bunny and a rigger. I'm a switch. I'm a brat. I'm a brat tamer. I'm a dom and a sub. Like, what? Yeah. Oh, and non-monogamous, even though I've never been in a non-monogamous relationship. Who's next?
Yeah, I can do mine. So my top ones, vanilla, brat, they were both 99%.
Ooh.
Rope bunny was like 98%, and non-monogamous was like 96% or something. I don't, those don't add up, but but those are my top. Yeah.
Okay, I'll do mine really quick. So my first one was submissive. That one's 100%. Then I have brat and degradee, which were also 100%. And then rope bunny, and then boy/girl. So that's like the whole daddy side of the spectrum. Those were all 100%. And then I have masochist and age player. Those were 97 and 95. So those were my top ones.
Mine, I just screenshotted my top 4. My first one, 100% rope bunny.
Yeah.
99% brat, 86% submissive, and I feel like those two are basically like the same category anyway. And then my last one, 66%, was the experimentalist, which honestly I feel like I resonate a lot with, but that one's basically like they want to have tried it all, so they're just down to try new things, and I'm totally that person. So
yeah, literally. I feel like we're all very similar. We all got rope bunny. Did we all get brat?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what? Who are we?
And I feel like we're all the type of people to try everything once.
Yeah, I got
like,
experimentalist too. Like,
yeah, I got that one too. So
it's almost like we're friends and we run a sex podcast.
Yeah. Oh my god. It was like 99% of my screen was green, like 100%. Like the lowest was like 76% or something. And the last two were like vanilla and degrader. And they were red, and I was like, oh, she wants it all.
I didn't have vanilla at all. Not on any.
Whoa.
I was like,
He's a freak.
Mine was
Honestly, it's giving some homework. And I think this test is super fun. I don't know if we already said this, but super fun, just kind of like with the same idea, if you watched our last video, about writing a list with you and your partner, 5 things you would do, 5 things you maybe would do, 5 things you would never do. That's like a cool way to like figure it out. And even if you don't resonate with all of the results, you can pick and choose which ones do and like learn what they mean with a little blurb. Yeah. So like, I implore everybody to take the sexual deviant test. Just figure out what you might want to try.
But take the test. It has all the definitions that you guys need. And it goes into, it's like, what the fuck is a brat, right? Like, it has the definitions. So you guys can go look and be like, oh, okay, I'm that. And then, talk to your partner about it and get stuff going.
I'm going to send us off with this, boys. Brats are, in essence, naughty submissives. That was it. Because I have the definitions out.
I just want to add really quick. I know some people, if they're looking for resources, they don't really want to read a book. A really great resource on YouTube, her name's Evie Lupine, and she does a lot of videos on all things BDSM and kink. So I would check her out. I've watched a lot of her videos, and she's really great. So,
and that's a free resource. So honestly, fuck it. Accessibility, my friends.
Same with I was reading Gigi. It's Gigi Engle. Engle is her last name. So we'll put the one I said and the one Maddie said on the screen. But yeah, super good resources. Go check them out.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to, even you can use our emails, comments, queefs, concerns @gmail.com.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Anyways, go comment on our Instagram. We'll do a Q&A, so we'll answer all the rest of your guys' questions. Thank you so much. If you made it this long, thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please like, subscribe. It really supports our channel. We're working really, really hard on this. So any feedback you guys have, please send it our way. Any comments, yeah, please, we're all ears. So we really appreciate you guys listening. And that's it. Thanks for watching.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
You're like,
No, what do people do? Oh yeah, it's that. Why did I use two hands?